Are grasslands important? Yes, they are. They're important to everybody, and it doesn't matter where you live. Grasslands are a whole community of living things besides the grass. Everything depends on how healthy that grass is, the grasslands are. And grass was developed to be grazed, whether it was elk, antelope, bison, or cows, sheep. Grass needs to be clipped at the proper time to regenerate beautiful, lush growth. And the bugs, the worms, the birds, everybody's happy when we have good grasslands.
Protecting and keeping this prairie land is very important to all of us because the land is what sustains us and our animals, and it's so important to keep that and keep it going and continue to help it regrowth.
My name is Jim Sizemore, and the Sizemore Ranch moved their cows down to the Columbia Hills State Park, which used to be the Dalles Mountain Ranch. And we are involved in a prairie restoration project with our cows here. The reason that we do this is what we love. And this is going to be a future cowboy bringing Sizemore cows down to this ranch for prairie restoration. The project was set up by Washington State University. The oversight is with Stephen Van Vliet. What started the project was me lobbying the State Parks Department to allow grazing on this ranch, to utilize it to keep the plant community viable, healthy, and growing. And the WSU was looking for projects like that, which by chance it came together, and so that's what we've been doing for about the last 6 years.
My name is Nancy Sizemore. Today we brought some cows down to graze on some grassland that needed some grazing. The prairie land down here I've seen for many years. My father used to run cattle on it years ago, and then it was rested for a while and we're back again. The grasses, they need cattle on it to graze it off and keep it invigorated and growing.
What happened is, over the course of time, there has been no impact to this ranch property. The plant community is stagnant. It's actually dying off in a lot of places because the grass has had no impact or utilization, either from fire or from grazing. And grazing is a lot safer than fire. So that is what got the college and the park interested in a prairie restoration project. For this county, for this area where the Sizemore Ranch is located, this was a working ranch for 150, 200 years. It was part of the economy, provided work for the people that lived on it and lived around it. And with the state parks acquiring the ground, it was taken away from the economic base, from the way that it had been used. It's very important for people like me to have a place to run and graze their cows. And when we lose that opportunity, there's less food available. One of the concerns that the community had was the fuel buildup with no grazing or no impact done to the land here on the park. And that affects the neighbors because fires very seldom will honor a fence line and stay on one side of the fence. The fire here, and we had one, it burned a long ways and over several private ownerships that came from here. So yeah, that was a big concern. very big concern. And it's always a concern with cattlemen when any government ends up owning a piece of ground. The opportunity for us to be able to graze that is diminished greatly.
My name's Will Sizemore. We've been bringing cows over here for 6 years now to graze this park over here to try to restore some of the habitat to more native species that were here prior to when it was farmed. This year's different. We're on a new piece this year that's across the road from where we've been. It hasn't had any grazing on it at all in years, and so it's got a pretty dense population of just one species of grass that was seeded there, so it's got a lot of restoration work to be done to it.
This year is a little different. The fire went through and burned the grasses that we had before, so we're on a new piece of land this year, which is kind of exciting to see what it does and how it invigorates the grasses and keeps it going.
Every year is different, every year's the same. I mean, the goals are the same. We may have to change how we try to reach the goal because of a weather condition or some other man-made condition. We had a fire start west of the park this summer, late summer, and it came across the park and it burnt about half of the pasture, the large pasture that we had been grazing these last several years. And we'd been cutting the big pasture up into small pastures and rotating through. That was the grazing plan, to rotate and let rest. Well, when the fire came through, it burnt the area that we had planned to graze again this year. And so there is no feed on it. And we don't want cattle on it. It's the ground has been impacted enough. So the park has opened up a new pasture, and this was the first year that we're going to start the process. We'll incorporate this pasture into a larger grazing plan, rotational project, and we will rest that area that burnt. And I don't think any of the grass got killed. I think that the fire moved through so fast, it was cool enough that the root mass is still alive. It's dormant, still alive. All we need is Mother Nature's good moisture over winter and spring, and I think we'll have a very good looking piece of ground down there with a lot of plant diversity, and that's the goal. Fire can provide that impact just like grazing, but it's much harder to contain and control than my cows. The fire started, I believe, at 12:30 that day in the noon hour, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning when my son got home the next day from fighting that fire, where we finally got the last of it put out up above our house. Generally, with these kinds of fires, we have to find a road to stage from. That's our already built fire trail. With these winds that blow through here, the fire moves too fast to try to hand crew, dig a fire trail. When we bring the bulldozers in, and we did bring them in on this fire, you have to go so far in front of the fire to have enough time to put the line in, because the winds are pushing the fire so fast. And that's the hard part in this area, is we always have a wind, and that fire does not just burn slow a few feet at a time. It is gone. We probably won't come back and put cows on the area that burned for at least 2 years. It'll give the ground plenty of time to recover from the fire. And it's too soon to say that it was bad or if it's good. We need to take a look at it next spring and next fall.
The fire, I don't know if it's hurt, how bad it's hurt anything, if it has. It's one of the reasons that we are on a different piece this year from the past, because what burned would have been what we would have grazed this year. The stuff that didn't burn, we grazed it last year, so we didn't want to re-graze it, you know, back to back. So that was another reason we went across the road. The fire, it should do quite a bit of good, like the cattle. The biggest deal there is if it didn't get too hot, the ground. If the ground gets too hot, then it's going to be tough for plants to recover for the following year. You know, the seeds that may be down in the soil or what may got too hot won't germinate, may have burned up, you know. It's kind of hard telling yet. Won't know till next year.
This area, especially here in the gorge, this east end of the gorge, we always have wind. And the wind drives that fire so fast, and these hills have, you can't drive just anywhere on these hills, so it's very hard to fight a fire here in this area, because you can only be on it for a very short amount of time, and then you run out of areas to drive and the fire leaves you. So yeah, it's worrisome. It came over the hill this time above our house, and it did that one other time in 2011, and that's worrisome because then you're coming down towards my house where I live, and so yeah, it is worrisome. I do know that management, especially on public land, because that is it's so much harder to have a management plan on public land because you have so many interests wanting to weigh in on how the goals and the plan is going to be implemented. But if we don't do anything, that is one management plan, and that's similar to what they do in wilderness areas. If a fire gets started in the wilderness area, you let it burn. Well, that's fine if that's been happening over a succession of time of hundreds, millions of years. But when you stop that and you don't let it burn for a long period of time, the fuel load gets so built up, that fire is so hot, it sterilizes everything when you do have a fire go through there. You lose all of your ecosystem, you lose the endangered species that live there. And I think that our land managers and government need to look long and hard at how they're managing our lands. It is so different than the way we manage our private lands. I know with federal lands, when the federal lands burn and they've been open to grazing, you are not allowed to run your cows on there for at least 2 years to let the land recover, okay? And that's fine, that's understandable, but you can't just keep those cows in the corral for 2 years. We need another place to go with the animals, and it'd be very helpful if the land managers could try to find other lands temporarily that haven't been grazed, haven't allowed grazing on them. Let those ranches that get burned out go there for that proper time to let their other ground heal. It would be a good thing for the area where the cows go, where it hasn't been grazed, because grass needs to be stimulated. And one of the easiest ways to picture that is just take a spot in your yard and don't mow it, don't do anything, don't have no impact on it at all, and see how long it stays looking like a lawn. It happens out here. We have had, because I've asked with my involvement in cattlemen's organizations in the past, when we've had fires and it's impacted, ranchers where they've got no forage left, we have had Nature Conservancy has offered some acreage, to help with that. Fish and Wildlife, the state Fish and Wildlife, I believe I was able to get some ground from them for some ranchers that had lost their pastures to fire. So yeah, if the land manager for the agency is willing to do that, we probably can get it done. But if they're not willing to do that, then it doesn't happen. Private parties, yes. We donate money to buy hay, donate hay. We've donated hay. My family has donated heifers to replace animals that have burned up in fires to other ranchers in the other areas. Yeah, we do that kind of thing. We try to help. But when you mentioned that we had 3 million acres burn this in 2015 so far, we can't donate and replace that. You can't stop lightning, and we get a lot of fires that are started by lightning, and it's hard to fix stupid if you have human error through stupidity. We've had 2 fires start from lawnmowers this year. People mowing their lawn or mowing the side of their road or whatever, hits a rock, causes a spark. Will we be able to restore to the way this was before this was a working ranch? Probably not. One of the reasons is this is a very dry, brittle climate, and it is a very good climate for Mediterranean plant species which are not native here. We have a whole lot of invasive plants that like this area: skeleton weed, knapweed, you name it. Those weren't here until we came and brought them over the ocean with us. So they're very competitive compared to our native plants. So it probably won't be a pristine prairie when we say we've done our job and this is what it is, but it will be so much better than what it is now. So much better. We are already showing improvements on the pastures where we've grazed. We have the local Native Plant Society has been monitoring and making sure that what we're doing with the cows is not negatively impacting the land. And they are very happy on how such a diverse plant community is trying to evolve now behind our cows. We know that we are making improvements because we are doing the monitoring. The college, WSU, is doing the monitoring to make sure. The Native Plant Society is doing their own monitoring to make sure. The state parks is doing monitoring to make sure that nothing negative is happening.
Well, overgrazing can be damaging in a couple of ways. One, if you destroy all the plants there, you have bare soil. So on a day like today with the wind, there's wind erosion, the wind will blow all the topsoil away, and then it'll be a lot harder for plants to reestablish themselves with little to no soil left due to the wind. When you lose the plants and the sod, also the water can erode the ground real bad, and then you're shape of the landscape changes, same difference. You won't have the topsoil there for the plants to survive in, things like that. And then also, by overgrazing the plants that are there and exposing more bare ground, you are more apt to have noxious weeds move in. And so it can hurt a few different ways. Not to mention, you won't have near the feed there for the cows.
If cows have the ability to overgraze and destroy a piece of ground, if they're managed that way, then if we change the way we manage the cows, we should be able to do positive things.
This is important for us to take care of the grasses and the land because it sustains us. Nature is so important to us, for our animals and for us and for the future, and we want to take care of it the best we can so it'll be here forever for the next generations to come.
The reason that we do this is what we love. And this is going to be a future cowboy bringing Sizemore cows down to this ranch for prairie restoration.